70s were an interesting time, full of sideburns and bell-bottoms. One thing you may not know about the 70s is that it was the time of the Stanford prison experiment. So these kids, they were college students, and they were brought into a mock prison where they were treated like prisoners, and the guards had to treat them as such. It's important to know this because we learn a lot about what these people are capable of doing in the certain situations that they are put in. So I've done a lot of research on this, and I pretty much learned it in psychology at first, and then I took on more research recently by watching interviews of Zimbardo talking about it and watching the actual tapes of the experiment. So today you're going to learn about the background of Zimbardo, the experiment, and what he learned from it. So Ann Weber, a professor of psychology at UNC Asheville, North Carolina, states that Philip Zimbardo is a renowned psychologist that graduated from Brooklyn College and taught at NYU, Yale, Stanford. And while he was at Stanford, he conducted the Stanford prison experiment. So now that you know a little bit about him, we can learn about the actual experiment. So it started off by they put it in a newspaper ad for any college males that would like to participate in it for extra money. And I think it was $15 a day. And it was supposed to last for 2 weeks. So these men signed up for it, and they were evaluated mentally and physically to make sure that they were completely average and normal. So after they were evaluated, they were chosen, and I think they interviewed them a little bit, and they pretty much just flipped a coin to figure out who was going to be prisoners and who were going to be the guards. And so it was done by Zimbardo, Craig Haney, and David Jaff. And there was a few other researchers helping them conduct this experiment. So the main point of it was that they wanted to learn how people reacted and how they, basically how they reacted to authority. So the guards had to wear a uniform that's basically a military uniform, and they had reflective sunglasses and not a bar, but like, you know, what guards have, and they like can hit the prisoners with them. Of course, in this experiment, the guards could not hit the prisoners at all, and they could have no physical touching, which you'll learn that did not exactly happen this way. They were all dressed exactly the same to create a uniform, singular, like authority figure instead of individual people. And the prisoners, they were dressed in like baggy clothing, and they had chains around their ankles to signify that they were completely, like, not dehumanized, but they were stripped of their personality, who they were. So within the first few days, it turned very, very bad, and the prison experiment only actually lasted for 6 days instead of 2 weeks when it was originally supposed to be that long. So within the first night, they had already had a physical beating to one of the prisoners, but they did not obey. And by the second day, they had started a rebellion, which caused one of the prisoners to go into solitary confinement, which was actually just a closet which they couldn't sit in or really do anything in. So they'd have to, you know, clean toilet, do normal prison things. But the guards stripped them naked and dehumanized them. And pretty much it was just because that they were bored and they wanted to fill in that role. Even though Zimbardo never told them exactly what to do, he just told them to maintain order in the prison. So one of them, they stripped the prisoners, they would take away their mattresses so they couldn't sleep well. They would make them go to the bathroom in buckets instead of the toilet to help dehumanize them. They would sexually humiliate them. And to help show this, I think it'd be a good idea just to listen to these audio clips, which helped me personally really realize just how bad it was.
You want us to take them as random, let's go ask.
Oh, and I warn it does have graphic content and graphic language. But I think that this really helps show just how bad it was just within the first few days.
Is that what you want? You want me to take that random, your ass? Try to keep off this.
have to go. Miss you a lot.
No, I gotta go. I can to a doctor, anything. I can't say that. I'm fucked up. I don't know how to explain it. I'm all fucked up inside. No! No! God damn it. You don't know. I mean, God. Soldier doesn't bug me.
So those were just a few clips to show just how bad it was, and that was only within the first few days that this prisoner actually thought that he was in an actual prison instead of just a mock. So he was screaming like, I want out, when in reality he could have just said, I'm done with the experiment, I want to leave, and Zimbardo would have to let him go. But he thought he was in an actual prison that he couldn't leave. So what did he learn from this? Zimbardo learned that there's evil in everybody, and it just depends on the situation that people are put in, which he labels the Lucifer effect. So the prison experiment is one example of this. The guards are just average, normal people put into this situation where they have to be an authority figure, which turn them into not so good people. So another example of this, which Zimbardo talks about in one of his interviews, is Abu Ghraib, which, if you don't know about it, it was a prison in Iraq where they had prisoners in there, and the guards started treating them terribly, and they were caught for this. And the prison is now shut down. So, in summary, Zimbardo is a very good psychologist that did this experiment, and the Stanford prison experiment was not a very good experiment that treated prisoners horribly, and what he had learned from this. So I suggest, if you guys were interested in this, there's actually the Stanford Prison Experiment movie on Netflix, which Zimbardo actually helped make. So I suggest watching that because it's really good and it takes real examples of what had happened. And let's take this as a learning example from the 70s. Thank you.